Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 24th and tonight's movie is Inside. This is the oldest movie on this Horror Nights, coming all the way back from the distant year of 2007. I say that, but people born in 2007 will be able to see an R-rated movie unsupervised by the time this year is over. This is a home invasion horror slash slasher movie about a young widow who is about to give birth. She is incredibly pregnant and she's being terrorized by a mysterious woman who invades her house on Christmas Eve. Also, she apparently wants the baby. Makes me think it's going to go in a Savannah Greywind direction. This is one of those movies that's said might have gone too far. It is from France, but this month I've already seen Martyrs. I don't know what this movie could do to surpass Martyrs. I am apprehensive, but it can't be worse than Martyrs, right? I'm gonna go give it a watch. My concerns were thankfully unfounded. Inside, in terms of showing disturbing content, is not nearly as bad as Martyrs. It's the goriest slasher film I've ever seen, but it's still nothing compared to Martyrs. It does really know how to work the tension, but even at a relatively short 82 minutes, it feels kind of padded out and repetitive. I'm going to give Inside a 6 out of 10. This movie also does break the streak of bad main characters. The main character, Sarah, in this movie is nothing spectacular, but I was on her side and rooting for her from start to finish. This movie reminded me a lot of The Strangers and the fact that it's a very stripped down take on a home invasion, except this one is even simpler, actually. There is just one person in the house, one invader. The woman who broke into Sarah's house on Christmas Eve and wants to do her harm is never named in this movie, so for this video, I'm just going to be referring to her as the intruder. For most of the movie, we know almost nothing about the intruder. We don't even know her name. We don't know who she is. When we saw her at the very beginning, like right when she first approached Sarah asking to be let inside the house, I thought that it was someone we saw earlier in the movie. She starts out at like a fertility clinic, and one of the nurses has a conversation with her, and I thought it was that nurse. No, it was somebody else. It starts out with her completely shrouded in mystery, and they reveal things gradually. At first off, you don't even see her face or get a good look at her face, but then that's slowly revealed. She's somewhat older than Sarah. She also has the primary weapon of a pair of scissors, and she must have gotten them from the same place that the Tethered from Us got their scissors, because they're pretty much indestructible and will cut through everything. Also, I don't recall her showing that much emotion throughout the movie. Like, the only time where she really got excited about anything is when she's getting maimed. There wasn't anything like hot-headed or emotional about her for most of this film. She was very cold, sort of like a Michael Myers type. This is a really good setup for a slasher film, and I will say the practical gore effects in this movie are quite impressive. But I think they kind of fumble the execution a little bit. There is a way too big chunk of this movie where Sarah is literally just locked inside of a bathroom and the intruder is just outside the door saying, like, I want to get you or something like that. And then more people come in and then she has to kill them and she's just stuck in the bathroom. I could appreciate how normal a lot of the side characters were acting in this movie, because usually in these films you expect, like, the police, for example, to be total incompetents who don't do their due diligence at all. When she first sees the intruder asking to be let in, and then later standing outside the window and banging on the glass, breaking it a little bit, Sarah does, in fact, call the police and tell them about her. And they say, well, we searched the area, she's no longer here. We will send cop cars every so often throughout this night just to make sure you're okay. And they actually do that. They follow up with that. But by that point, when they get back, she's already locked in the bathroom. So the intruder answers the door and they just assume that she is the woman that they were told to go check on. And I thought they were just going to walk away and not investigate at all. But then they remember they were told that the woman that they're supposed to be checking on is very pregnant. So they go back and ask a little bit further, and she has to kill both of them. The movie does pick up a lot when Sarah finally escapes the bathroom, but I feel like they spent way too much time sort of spinning their wheels with that part. I was kind of wondering why this movie had such a reputation for most of it, because it just felt like a slasher film, a particularly gory slasher film, but nothing really out of the ordinary until you get one of the last things that you see in this movie. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's what they're talking about. Overall, I thought this was just a very simple look at a home invasion slasher type of movie. I didn't think it was as creative or compelling as movies like The Strangers or Hush, but it did get the job done. If you're not into gore, I wouldn't recommend it, but otherwise, there's nothing really objectionable about it, at least from a film quality standpoint. It's not going to inflict psychic damage on you the way that something like Martyrs did. And now I want to talk about some spoilers. The first thing you see in this movie is Sarah with her boyfriend or husband, and they get into a very bad car accident. She is injured but alive. Her unborn baby is not killed. I don't know the extent of the injuries. And the husband or boyfriend is killed. So, jumping ahead in this movie, when she finally gets out of that bathroom, she fights against the intruder in the kitchen. There's a point where the intruder literally just grabs a toaster and like whacks her with it. They get into a scuffle that the intruder ultimately wins. She has Sarah pinned down on the ground, and she's confident enough that she actually pulls out a cigarette and tries to light it. And that's when Sarah uses that opportunity to get like a can of baking spray, spray it in her face, which is basically causing a fireball going directly at her. And that's when she starts getting mad. That's when she starts screaming. And since she was wearing this very long black dress or coat, it almost made me think of the Wicked Witch. So the intruder runs off to, I don't know, lick her wounds or sit down and cry or something. And there's a point where Sarah is like hyperventilating. She cannot catch her breath. And she had knitting needles. That's also a strange connection between this and Halloween. She uses it and points it at her own throat. And I thought she was trying to kill herself. But then I realized I guess she just really could not catch a breath and she was scared she was going to like go into shock or pass out or something. So she cut her own stoma, used that to breathe for a bit, and then sealed it back up with duct tape. And that's the point where Sarah decides that she is done with this and she locks in. She like makes her own spear. The power in the house is off, so it's pitch black, and she like uses her camera to like light up the dark. And I sort of perked up a bit. I was like, wait a minute, is this movie getting really good? But when she is able to find the intruder seems to have lost her fight for a bit, and she explains what her motivation actually is. She was the driver of the other car in the car crash at the beginning of the movie. She was also pregnant, but her baby didn't make it. So she blames Sarah for it and considers this eye for an eye. They're interrupted by one of the other side characters, previously presumed dead, who's like confused and blinded and accidentally attacks Sarah. And at that point, Sarah actually starts going into active labor. She's like crawling away. The intruder takes out the attacking man and then goes over to Sarah. And at that point, she starts giving birth, except the baby is stuck. And at that point, the intruder does what she had been planning to do this whole time, use her mega scissors to give Sarah a C section and take the baby. And in the translation I got, there was no real indication of this besides the fact that she wasn't actively fighting back, like trying to like push her away. She was just laying there screaming. But apparently, she actually asked her to remove the baby however she could. So that moment, she put the life of her child ahead of her own. And Sarah does die, but the baby does make it out of this. And the movie ends with the intruder sitting there holding the baby in her arms. I doubt she was able to, like, get away with it because she killed 6 people that night. 3 of them were police officers. But the movie ends before you could see any of that play out. If it wasn't for the C section at the end of the movie, this wouldn't even be super notable as a particularly gory or violent slasher. But it still probably would have been noticed as a good one, mostly due to the execution and performance of the intruder's character. I didn't like the pacing, but there were enough good things in it for it to ultimately come out on top in the end. And if we're talking about movies where babies are forcibly removed from someone's abdomen, it is much better than Resurrection from yesterday. It's really weird that I got 2 of those movies in a row. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow.